I am Daniel Lucas and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the author of the Jade Stone Chronicles, no other than Miss Huckleberry Rahr. Welcome back, Miss Huckle.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, another week, another book to discuss. So, Miss Huckle, before we go on to your second series, let's do the recap of your book one.
Wolf Healer.
Yes.
All right. So in Wolf Healer, Jade Stone, a high school student, she has her life fully in line. She knows exactly what she wants to do. She knows exactly what she's going to do in life. She's going to be the next healer for her family's werewolf pack. Her best friend invites her to Florida. She's very excited to go. So she goes to Florida and everything changes. She comes back to Wisconsin and there's all of this change in her life, and her friends all kind of circle around her, helping her out. It's a book a lot about family and friends. Her family is supportive, but it takes them a while to kind of figure things out. Her friends are immediately very supportive. Though her older brother, she and her older brother fight a lot. Her brother immediately is on her side saying, don't worry, everything is going to work out. Her brother ends up being part of her friend group because in wolf packs, it's all about family. And so early on in the book, her brother becomes a werewolf, has his first shift. And so he becomes a lot about family and including her, even though she's his annoying younger sister.
Indeed. Interesting. Wolf Healer people, please do read it, buy it, and we're gonna talk about the second series of the Jade Stone Chronicles. What is it, Miss Huckle?
All right. So in book 2, Epsilon, it starts in the summer between Jade's sophomore and junior year of high school. She is with her brother who's about to start college. And on the way home, the family hears this report about this young girl, 5-year-old in Illinois, who's found on the side of the road, outside of the car, and her parents were found inside of the car, somehow attacked by a wild animal. And the parents are like, oh no, because werewolves aren't out in my book. So the parents want to go down to Illinois, where the girl has been put in foster care, to find out if she was also bitten, because they assume the wild creature who somehow attacked these adults within their car was a werewolf. So they go down to Illinois to find out that this 5-year-old girl who's in foster care was indeed bitten. And in the kind of the world building that I have, werewolves don't shift to become wolves until they're later teens, almost until they're 20, which is why her older brother shifted his senior year of high school for the first time. Because the idea of young kids, 5-year-olds, kind of meeting the needs of, having stuffed animals and cute animals and liking the animals and then having to hunt them. As always being a wolf, that's one thing, but being a human young girl who's wanting cute, cuddly animals and then needing to hunt them, that's a different dichotomy. So it's become something much different. And so it's kind of the story of what happens when first they figure out what to do with this poor young girl. And then it's a darker story, the second one, because they come back to Wisconsin, and I have two different designations for wolves. One is lone wolf. A lone wolf is a wolf who isn't part of a pack. And so they are just out and about, deciding not to be part of a pack. And then there are rogue wolves. And rogue wolves are wolves who are actually out killing humans. And so this is where you start learning these two designations, and they find out that in their town, they have a rogue wolf. And so there's a lockdown in town because people are dying by some wild animal. But the pack adults, not the kids, not Jade and her friends, are telling the kids, we need you to be especially careful because we're going to deal with this. But of course, somehow Jade and her friends get pulled into it.
More interesting. So, Epsilon, what behind the title of your book too?
So I don't want to give too much away, but it is another designation of werewolf. So there are alphas and betas and epsilons, there are rogues, and there are lone wolves. And it's described in the book what an epsilon werewolf is, but it's just another designation that I then play with for the rest of my series.
How did you craft it, Epsilon?
When I was first writing Wolf Healer, I read a lot of articles on wolves and different designations. And I think I read one with the designation of Epsilon. The idea of a wolf who was outside of the alpha, beta, well, outside of the submissive, non-submissive structure. So someone who isn't dominant or submissive, but just outside of that structure. And so I don't remember if I read it in an article, Epsilon as being a name, or if I decided to use that as a name. But I think I read it somewhere that Epsilon could be a name of a wolf who is outside of the dominant structure.
Amazing, Miss Huckle. So do you think book 2, what is the flaws?
What are the flaws? So there is a bit of a mystery in book 2, and some people say it's obvious. They know exactly what's happening right away. I write more of urban fantasy than mystery. I tried to make it more of a mystery, but maybe it is really obvious from the beginning. Probably the biggest thing is I thought it was a mystery, but some of my readers are like, yeah, I do right away.
So if you want to go back and revise the book to which part of it?
That's a really interesting question because it's hard for me to go back and revise books because I like moving forward. If there was I'm more of someone who likes to continue on in the journey of writing. I would rather spend my time the girl that they pick up in this book, the 5-year-old, her name is Pebble. That's her nickname. The nickname the father gives her because her eyes are the color of river pebbles. And I would rather write a series for Pebble when she turns 18 than go back and review old series. I'm always one who wants to move forward. Now, there's a lot of information coming out about books that are problematic and authors that are problematic. And if I had people coming at me and saying, this part of this book is really problematic because of X, Y, and Z, then I would absolutely go back. Because as our society grows and evolves and we learn more, we find out that things that we thought were totally acceptable are actually problematic. And so if I found out something that I wrote was problematic, then I would absolutely go back and rewrite. Outside of that, I don't tend to see myself going back and rewriting.
Very well said, Miss Huckle. But before we go on, I want to shout out to the people listening in the United States, most especially in Wisconsin. In Oshkosh, I got 30%, Wanaki 17%, Milwaukee at 13%, West Bend at 3%, Sun Prairie, Mayville, Almena, Hartford, Kenosha, Sharon, Oak Creek, Madison, and last but not the least, New Berlin. Oh, you have a New Berlin in Wisconsin. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast because this podcast is created to empower writers all about the world, like Miss Huckleberry Rahr. So, Miss Huckle, what is the best highlight of Epsilon?
Um, so one thing I had, see, the best highlight, besides getting a new sister, which I thought was really fun. Um, so one of Jade's best friends is Bevan, and he gets a boyfriend. He'll get a boyfriend again in book 3. So his arc of character grows a lot in book 2 and then into book 3. Bevan in book 1 isn't a huge character. Bevan is an interesting character because he's trans. And through books 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I would say Bevan almost becomes a secondary, primary character. All of the 6 books are in Jade's point of view, but Bevan is a huge part of all of the books. So he is solidly in all of them. I just wrote a Christmas novella that'll come out hopefully in November. And I actually wrote not half of it, but almost half of it in Bevan's point of view. So you actually get both Jade and Bevan's point of view. There's one other point of view in there, but it's not a character I'm going to release right now because that would be a bit of a spoiler. There are
Yes.
characters that, like, I'm really bad at secondary, well, not secondary characters. I'm really bad at throwaway characters. You know, you bring in a character that you just want to throw in as like a play saver for something. And then later that character shows up again and again and again. And the next thing you know, you have like a secondary character that just will never go away. And that seems to happen to me a lot. And the next thing you know, that character is just there forever. And so I'm really bad at throwaway characters. I can't seem to figure out how to have them come in and go away and not come back over and over. It's happened to me twice now. Once with a character actually who first shows up in book 1, who ended up being in almost all of the books. They're not in all of the books, but they're in a lot of them. And I literally thought they would just be in book 1. And then a character in book 4 who also was going to be a throwaway character who ended up being a huge character who's in every other book past book 4.
Yes, indeed. And according to one of your Kindle customer, very enjoyable action-oriented read. Never a dull moment. So what are the elements that you put in Epsilon that make your reader, oh my goodness, never a dull moment?
I think the never a dull moment is the fact that there's a rogue wolf and there's just random people dying, like all over town. Every time you think something's going to get slow, it's like some random person is dying. And at first, Jade is the only one who notices the pattern of people dying because it's not like she's in high school. It's not like, hey, there's a high school student and another one. It's random people around town, but Jade is noticing the pattern of the people first. And so she goes to her parents and to people and is like, I'm seeing this pattern. And they're like, no, you're noticing things that are, you're just assuming. But then they're like, oh, wait, maybe you are seeing a pattern. She's like, yeah, I am.
Yes, and according to Miss Karen Brandman, really great book. Okay, so do you think your series will be a timeless series?
I hope so. I wanted to make a book that the heart of the series is just the connection between friends and family. And so I tried to make it timeless. The other thing I did to try to make it timeless is I try not to put in too many cultural references. I read cultural references in books a lot. You know, people talk about current apps and current trends. And
Yes.
I try to avoid talking about trends and such because I'm like, because I remember I'll read a book and they're like, she got a notification on her uh, beeper and found a payphone to make a call. And I'm like, wow, the 90s are calling. And I'm
Yes.
like, and even though the technology we have now with cell phones and smartwatches are pretty like solidly in there, who knows what it's going to be like in 10 or 20 years. I do have cell phones and I do have people playing on their phones because cell phones are probably going to be around for a lot longer. But I try not to be too obvious and too into technology that they're working on because I'm like, well, the less you are specific, I think the more timeless it can be.
Yes, very well said, Miss Huckle. So, who are your favorite classic author?
So if you go into classic, you know, I do love the Lord of the Ring books from Tolkien. Um, who doesn't? But not going into classic, but going into current authors. Like I love Patricia Briggs. I love her work. I love James. Sorry, I was about to say the reader of the book. I love James Butcher and the Dresden Files. I love Ilona Andrews. That's a couple who writes with the Kate Daniels series. Actually, I love most of what they write. I've been told with Patricia Briggs, she writes the Mercy Thompson series and the Alpha Omega series, that our tone is similar in how we write, with serious but light with good humor in it, which I really love to hear because I love her writing. Um, there's a lot. I love Anne McCaffrey. That's getting a little more classic in the current classic because she wrote back in, you know, the last century with the Dragon Riders of Pern. There's a lot, lots and lots of authors I've really enjoyed over the years. I've been reading my whole life. My mom had her bedroom walls with lined with bookshelves, and I actually have inherited all my mom's old books. So I now have my bedroom lined with all of these old fantasy and sci-fi books.
When you're reading all those books, did you realize that sooner or later I will be a writer?
No,
Oh, yeah.
not even a little bit. I grew up knowing I was good at math and very dyslexic. And I had a lot of people in my life, because I'm dyslexic, tell me I wasn't a good writer. Now, my mom, I have two moms. My mom, who, not my biological mom, but my other mom, who would always have to edit my stuff. So I would show her my papers and they would come back fully read with all the red ink. So I've never had any issue with people marking my stuff up in red. She would always say, "You're a very good writer. It's just your grammar. You can write forever. You write fast. You write well." But I never really heard that as encouragement to write. I knew I was creative, but I always saw writing as the technical writing. So I never thought of myself as a writer. I knew I was creative, but not much more than that. And then in 2019, so 4 years ago, almost exactly, in July. Um, I was looking at my kids and I was thinking about books. I won't mention the books. I don't want to call anything out. I was looking at the books they read. And they either had, and it was because I would often read books with my kids. So they would read it, I would read it. And there were some books out there that were YA, and they had things like, um, let's take a hit and go to this dance, or look at these people on the dance floor. It's like they're having an orgy. And I'm thinking, I really don't want my kids reading these YA books with these concepts in them. Or the other option was middle grade. And they were above middle grade. They wanted something with more oomph to them, better than that. So I wanted something grittier without all of the sex and orgy and things and swear words. I'm like, there had to be something else, something that wasn't full of swear words, full of sex, but still gritty and a solid story. And I wasn't finding it. And I was like, okay, well, then I'll write it. Like, I've never written anything, but if I can't find it, I can write it, right?
Yes.
And so I sat down and I wrote Wolf Healer. And as I got maybe 15 chapters in, and nobody knew I was writing. And then I went to my son and I had him read it. And he's like, this is fantastic. Finish it. And I got done with it. Still, nobody knew I was writing. And I have a friend who I went to school with, and we both got degrees in math education. And she ended up becoming a librarian. And I sent her the manuscript. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. What do you think? And she said, when your book gets published, I'll put it in my library. And I was like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
And then I went about learning how to get a book published, which, by the way, is like me standing at the bottom of like Mount Everest, because it took me about 2.5 weeks to write Wolf Healer. And the first thing I read was, you're really excited. You just wrote a book. Write another one while you're happy. So I wrote Epsilon in a week because I had a week before school started because it was still in August. And so in the month of August, because I started July 27th. So before August was done, I wrote Epsilon. So I wrote those first two books in just over a month. And then school started. And then I had to figure everything out. I asked a few people. I started telling people what I had done. Um, I got a writer's group. Then I learned that what I had written needed a lot of cleaning up. Eventually, found somebody who could edit. Wesley Immersek, amazing editor. They are fantastic. My mom read my first version of my book. Then they didn't read it again until it was published. And like I said, my mom used to edit everything with the red pen.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's like, what you wrote was better than some self-published books because of, some people just throw whatever up onto KDP, up into Amazon. But after seeing what Wesley Immersek did to my book, and it was, to be honest, the author A.R. Grimes has also helped clean up my book. So between A.R. Grimes and Wesley Immersek, who are both also amazing authors for the record, they have helped clean up my books. So between the two of them, they helped me clean up, add more detail when I skip details, because I'm dyslexic and I write really fast and I'll sometimes skip details. So between the two of them, they help me remember to add the extra details and edit the grammar. My mom read the published book on Kindle Unlimited, and my mom was like, whoa, these two are magic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I knew your first book was great, but the second final version, this published version, she's like, it's
Excellent.
fantastic.
Yes.
She's like,
Excellent.
I can't believe what these two did.
And according to Tori, as good as the first, what did you do to make this book one and book two equal, not overpowering each other?
Um, I don't know. Usually when I write a book, I imagine I'm reading the book and I type what I think I want to read.
You are really indeed a natural writer, a gardener, right? You don't do plan. You just write and write and write, and then it grow, and your reader love it. And thank you for sharing to us your talent, Miss Huckle. And before we go on, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, on our third season with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chef in one of the best restaurant in downtown Toronto. So please do listen. Food 101 plus one more. If you love comedy, people, we want to teach you how to entertain other people. We have this podcast with Mr. Mike Lucas, Comedy 101. Comedy 101 empower comedian all over the world and how to laugh because laughter is the best medicine. So, Miss Huckle, what else you can say about Epsilon?
Um, I think the first two books are a great opener. The first three kind of form a trilogy of when Jade is in high school. And I hope that you think about going out and reading these books. I think they're really fun.
Yes, it is, according to
Oh,
Mr. Anthony Basil.
and Epsilon has an incredibly funny series about scene Jade versus the geese, the Cobra chickens, um, which is hilarious unto itself.
Miss Huckle, what part of your writing you want more to evolve?
Um, I wish I could learn the grammar better so I understood commas and dashes and semicolons. It all seems very magical to me. I don't understand them at all. Maybe I do a little bit, but that's what I would want to evolve.
So, being mathematician affect your writing.
Um, so I don't know how much you know about people who are dyslexic, but we have really kind of fluid minds and like different areas of where we focus on. So when I'm writing, I tend to kind of turn off my math mind. I'm a little bit logical in that I don't, I think I'm pretty good with my characterization. It's very logical to me. A character will not get out of what they should be doing as a character. So I think that's how it affects it. But beyond that, I think I just tap into my creative side. I was in a lot of art classes when I was in college and in high school. I was very creative. Even like even today, I cook, I bake, I do a lot of creative things in my life. And even if you saw my math classes, probably my students would say I was very, very different than most math teachers because I take a very creative twist on it. So I don't know that the math has affected my writing as much as my creative side has affected the way I teach.
Very well said, Miss Huckle. So, what is your advice for or message for those people out there that they have the same situation, but they are good in writing?
Find other people because no matter how good you are at writing, you need other people because you will need help in adding detail, finding cleanup, getting advice. Anybody's writing can get better.
Yes, people, if you think that you are good in writing, share to us, learn the procedure in publishing your book as Miss Huckleberry did. And now she's getting have this lots of series. So you told us our last interview that you're gonna shift to another genre.
I said that I actually have a pen name and I do have books out in another genre.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so under my name, I'm going to have a new book coming out probably next year. It's going to be, and it's going to be in this genre. It's just going to be a Phoenix shifter. And it's going to be called Veiled Phoenix is the first one, and Moonstone Phoenix is the second, and I don't have a name for the third. Those two books are written already. I wrote them in NaNoWriMo last November,
Oh,
and they're about a non-binary character. So they go with they, them, which was interesting to write, a whole new challenge. Um, and the character is in this town with magic users, and they go to school with the magic users, but because they are Phoenix, their magic isn't really very strong, and so they get teased a lot about being a human in a magic school. They have really good fire magic, but since they're because they're Phoenix, but their fire magic is beyond what the school can teach, so they don't show it. Um, and then, of course, things happen.
Yes. So, what are your mission and vision in writing, Miss Huckle?
Sharing my stories with other people. I think I have an interesting twist on things. Usually in every book that I have published, someone will comment, this is such a unique twist on a familiar story. It's a different way of looking at things. And I think I do that a lot. I just have a different way of seeing, because people always say you can't tell a new story. All the stories have been told, but I think I have unique perspectives often.
Yes, indeed. So, Miss Huckle, please invite our listeners to buy all your books.
Please come to either my website, huckleberryrahr.com, or go on to Amazon. If you just type in Huckleberry Rahr, you will find me. Come and find my books. Um, if you, my sixth book comes out on July 21st, and then the entire six-book series will be out. Please look them up. You will enjoy them. You will not be sorry.
Definitely. It's one of a kind, according to Mr. Anthony Basil. So, do you think this is good for a series, Miss Huckle, or a motion picture?
I think it would be a really good series. I mean, I would love it as a motion picture, but I think it would be a good series. I think each book would be a good 8 series Netflix. I could see that happening.
Yes, people, we are shouting Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Apple. Come on, people. We
And
want
maybe
to
Hulu.
see
Hulu
Hulu.
has more of the LGBTQ shows, so maybe Hulu would be better.
Yes, definitely. Hulu, please include Miss Huckleberry, the Jade Chronicles. We want to see it in a screen, right? It's because
Absolutely.
if you read in a book, if the director portrayed in a different angle, why not, right? It's up to the readers, it's up to the viewers, but we want to see this in a series or whether in a motion picture. But come, people, see you soon.